everyone, I'm Allison.
I'm Bryce, and we're Better Half Reviews.
And today we are talking about Koi Garden. It's designed and published by Floyd Lu, and the art is by Darina Lapkovskaya.
In Koi Gardens, you're building up a flourishing pond and trying to manipulate the animals to help you score points.
Alright, so let's take a look. Here's the setup of the game. Everybody gets a starting land tile and a counter sheet and one set of each of the animals and insects. Everyone will get a starting animal as well. And then you'll shuffle all the rest of the animals together to create your animals for the game. Depending on the player count of the game, you have a different number of rounds. So if we're doing a 2-player game, we will have 9 rounds, meaning you will select 9 of these different cards to be on your pond.
On your turn, you'll select one of these land tiles from the market, and you'll place it into your pond. When placing a land tile, you have to connect it to one of the existing tiles on your pond. So you can connect it just by covering one of the squares, like so. You can't cover up the last square on the starting tile. So here we've covered up 3. I couldn't place a card here. You have to always keep at least one square in your starting tile visible. You can cover up more than one square when you place a tile down. However, to do so, it has to touch at least one other card. It can't be 2 squares on the same card. So here would not be allowed, but here would be since it spans 2 different cards. Also, when placing a tile, you can rotate the cards any way you want before you place it down. However, once they're placed, they'll stay like that for the rest of the game. One last rule is that if a square has an animal or one of these tokens on it, and we'll talk about these later, you can't place a tile on top of it. You'd have to place it somewhere else on your board.
Alright, so if I take my turn, I'll pick this card. I'll place it on my pond right here. And now that I've placed it, I'm going to do the movement of my animal. So the turtle here says that you move one way infinitely through the same scoring tile. And I get to score 1 point for every tile that looks like that I swim through. Whenever you get your animal, they start on one of the starting tile spots. I'll put them here. And it says I can move orthogonally up, down, left, or right. So I'm going to swim this way. And I moved through 2 of these, so I will score 2 points.
While these starting tiles are wild, they don't score points for you. So you can move through them if there's a condition where you can only move through a certain type of tile. However, like this card, where if you move through certain tiles, you score points, wilds would not count towards that point total. One other movement rule that wouldn't really come into play with the turtle, but can come into play with other animal cards. If you are allowed to move in multiple directions and not just one way like this turtle, you can't go back over tiles and rescore them. So I would only be able to move one way. I couldn't move back and score extra points.
Now that I've placed my tile and moved my animal, I need to swap the animal card that was in the same column as the tile that I picked. So next round, I will be scoring with this fish. Flip out a new tile, and it's ready for the next player's turn. And so in a 2-player game, we will play out through 9 rounds. Once you have 9 of these cards placed down, the game is over and you calculate your score.
Earlier, we mentioned these stone lanterns and how they might come into play later. So now's later. You get stone lanterns by using special tool cards. In the prototype, we only have this one tool card, but in the actual game, you'll have multiple of these. And each tool card provides a special ability. This tool card allows you to reset these land tiles before you draw your land tile. So if I wanted to use this tool card, I would clear all these out, draw out new land tiles. I play my turn as normal, and then at the end of my turn, I get the stone lantern and I could place it anywhere on my board. And as discussed earlier, the stone lantern blocks you from placing any animals or any tiles onto that spot.
So there's lots of different types of cards with movement on them. So some of them only let you move in certain directions. This one lets you move any one direction, and different tiles are needed for different cards. Some you can skip around and hop around, so it makes sense with their type of animal. And there's lots of different scoring opportunities. Alright, so that's how you play the game. Let's talk about how we feel about it. Bryce, what are some of the pros?
So I really like the look of this game and the artwork on it. Like, this is just really cool looking pond with koi fish, and I don't know. I think it just looks really cool.
Yeah, I definitely think it's cool to have like all the little pieces of the different animals and their different individual shapes and stuff, and like moving it around on your little pond is cool. And just like all the different colors of the cards and trying to map it out, it's thinky. So I have a fun time trying to figure out like how to make my best pond.
Yeah, it can be a little frustrating because you're like, oh, I need that piece, that, land tile or whatever.
But not that animal.
Yeah, you're like, I won't score any points with that animal. And so it's like, it can get frustrating at times.
Yeah. So it just depends on if you want to play like the long game or the short game, because there's sometimes where I'm like trying to plan it out to get like good amount of points later on, but that means sacrificing some of your earlier rounds, not getting many points. So you might feel like you're kind of behind when you're playing the game, and then all of a sudden they come up and win. But yeah. So yeah, it's fun trying to figure out that strategy, and I like that depending on the number of players that you have, it changes the number of rounds. Because obviously if you have more players, it's going to take more time, so there's less rounds. So you really have to be thinky and try to probably go for that short game. But when you're playing with just 2 players, you have like 9 rounds or so, and you can try to plan for that long game. So it just kind of depends on what game you're playing and what strategy you want to do.
Well, and also with like a 2-player game, there's a little bit more of that, like, take that element to it, where you can really be like, okay, I see what she's trying to do. Let me purposely take this tile, which means I'm going to take the thing she's trying to score.
Because he has the time to take that.
But with a 3 or 4-player game, even though we haven't played it at that count, I can see how the take that would be a little bit less important, just because
you could do it just for pure sabotage, but then you might not recover your own points. So,
and there's also more players, more time around the table, so it's like, well, I can see she's doing that, but she's 2 people away, so someone else might take that card anyway, so I'm just going to play for myself.
Yeah. So we only got the prototype, so we only had one of the tools. The tool that we had is where you could switch out the cards that are available. For a 2-player game, I didn't feel like that was too necessary because, it's every other turn is your turn. So like that tool didn't feel as helpful for us, but maybe in like a higher player count, by the time it gets to around to you, all the cards have changed and none of them may be good. But I'm interested to see what some of the other tools may be for the game, to see how that could change up the strategy where you'd actually want to use it a little bit more to gain that little
stone lantern.
Yeah. To see, like maybe there's a tool that could be really helpful where it's like, it's okay if I block out a piece of my pawn. But we didn't really do that much in our game so far, so I do want to see what he comes up with.
Yeah, I felt with 2 players, there was a lot more options just on the board, and we didn't necessarily need to change it out because, at least for me, I could plan ahead and be like, okay, if she takes this one, I could take this other card, and it wouldn't really matter. Whereas in a 3 or 4-player game, those cards are changing a lot more, and you're like, okay, I really need this one specific type of card. So I don't know. I could see it being used in both. We just haven't ended up using it.
So switching over, do you have any cons for the game?
I think one of my biggest cons was just I had a misconception about this game. I kind of looked at it, thought, oh, Koi Garden, it's gonna kind of be this zen, like, calm type of game. And sure, it's calm. Like, there's no yelling or fist fights over who slapped the card first or anything. But I was anything but zen while playing this game. There's just so much strategy and so much thinking that, like, my mind was just going a million miles a minute going, okay, she could do this, I could do this. This would be a good card, but then I couldn't score on this. I don't know. It just...
So your con is that there's more game than you thought there was?
I guess. More strategy than I thought there was.
I get that because, like he was saying, like, it looks all calm and everything. But yeah, there is a lot of thinky strategy to it if you want it to be. If you don't want to go for that, that's fine. You can just make a pretty pawn, but I can't guarantee your points. But yeah, so there's that. This isn't necessarily a con, but sometimes when I'm playing, I get a little bit confused on which animal I am playing. So like, I'll have the animal that's in front of me, but I'm thinking so far ahead for the next one that I'm taking the card that goes well with the animal I will be getting. And so that's just me personally, where I'm like, oh shoot, I picked this card for that animal, but I'm scoring the turtle right now and not the koi fish. So I mean, that's really not a con, but that's just something that happens to me when I'm thinking and playing this game, especially like with our first few games. But yeah, so that was one of my little struggles. But I mean, it's not a deal breaker or anything, and obviously I can get over it now that I've learned the game. So for those of you who are kind of on the fence with the game or not sure what to think, I liken this game a little bit towards Onitama. So it's a 2-player strategy game, and you're kind of going back and forth, and you have certain cards that are in the game that will rotate depending on what you've decided to play, and it gives you different movements and different ways to advance to hopefully win. But this game, it has certain cards, certain movements that you pick and choose that will be switching out back and forth between your opponents that let you score each round. So it is a different game, but that's kind of what it made me think of. So if you like Onitama, you can give this a try, and you can play it with more than 2 people. So there's that option for you. So if you like Onitama, you might like Koi Garden. So Koi Garden is coming to Kickstarter on April 9th. If this game looks interesting to you, you should definitely check it out. We'll have a link in the description down below to follow the campaign or to back it when that link is available.
And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Also, go check out our merch, link in the description. And this has been Better Half Reviews.
I'm Allison.
I'm Bryce.
Happy gaming!
Have fun! So be sure to look out for that.
It's just gonna stop there.
La la la.
La 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 la.
Bloop, 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 bloop. Bloop, 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 bloop.